Good afternoon, everybody. It's John for Falder's Rights and my anti-human trafficking YouTube channel. It's 12:59 p.m., February 8, 2025. This is a continuation of my series of Hereditary, Neglect and Abuse, and its telltale signs. In some cases, it's slight, and you start to realize it. Where the children actually start to withdraw from the abusive parent. They try to avoid them or even resist them to be in their presence. And, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I'll show you this picture of my daughter when we went to medieval times. You might not notice that, but that is not a normal family picture. You could see my daughter is actually wedging herself away from her mother. Now that's a subtle clue, but also remembering that day, my daughter actually wanted to break away from her mother and just stretch her legs with some of the other kids, but her mother would not allow it. And the funny thing about it is, one of the knights that was actually performing also noticed this peculiar behavior and seeing Gia stressed out. So he actually made Gia princess of the day of medieval times during that show. And Gia was actually able to enjoy herself then. I also seen this type of behavior directed toward my wife. So again, when I say hereditary neglect and abuse, there has to be a source where my wife thought the neglect and abuse was just run-of-the-mill normal behavior. Now, somebody asked me this question. When my wife's mother came to the house, was it a positive or was it negative? And I would have to always say it was a negative. Somehow, something was leaving my house in her hands that she hasn't earned. It might even include my respect. What I've noticed is that, like, my daughter would have a joyous moment, like I bought her I'll give you an example. I bought her, my wife and family, a new living room couch. Really expensive, nice chase, pull-out bed in it and everything for guests. I upgraded the fabric. I spent quite an amount of money on it. So my wife, being proud, her mother came over to see it, and you would think she would say, thank you, John, for buying this to my daughter. I'm proud of you both. You did a good job. That, again, even a positive thing like that was turned negative. And what I mean by negative, she went and touched the fabric, and she goes to my wife in front of me 10 feet away, I want one. My wife looked down at the floor. Again, this is behavior of somebody that's been abused by somebody. They look down at the floor. She goes, Mom, John paid for that. And the mother's response was to posture herself, lean back, put her hands on her hips. Are you telling me no? You're telling me no, I want one. So I just thought it was odd and didn't bother to put my 2 cents in, or it would have escalated worse. But I didn't appreciate seeing her abuse her daughter, my wife, right in front of me. And now I understand why Abraham, my mother-in-law's, I guess you can call him my father-in-law, said to me, don't listen to them. Now I understand. It's a little bit too late that it sunk in, Abraham, but you were right. So my wife, in order to please her mother or meet her demands, hocked her jewelry, stole my jewelry and hocked it, stole my daughter's Cougaran coins that were for her college and hocked it, and her mother got that couch. All because my wife was looking for some kind of affection from her mother. That's where you get hereditary abuse. That's how it begins. That's how it's taught. It's carried down generation to generation. Now, men, if we've been abused, it's usually we've been beaten. That's abuse. So we will turn around and tend to beat others. That never happened in my house. So if she's saying I abused her, it's just simply not true. There's never been any domestic violence in my house. Another time, I was talking to my wife, and she goes to me, "Why do you hate us?" Now, when she said us, my daughter wasn't included in that. It was my wife and my mother-in-law that I had the problem with. And I told her, it's not that I hate you guys, but I don't like some of the things you're doing. So instead of carrying on the conversation was dropped, not to be spoken about ever again, where I could tell them some of the things I disapproved of. Like, for instance, my wife's mother scammed her out of $2,000 on a pigeon drop. For some reason, like I said, they can't bond with their children. They don't see them as children. They see them as a resource. So what happened was my mother-in-law cooked up a scam where she told my wife that, hey, we had a rich relative that died and left us a lot of money. In the meantime, she never had a pot to piss in, and she was living in Section 8 housing during this episode that she had, or this grift that she was running. And then she told my wife, you know, if you give me $2,000, I can pay the lawyer and we can claim the money in the account and I'll give you some. So my wife, being excited, called me and told me about all of this. But I already knew what it was because I went to the American Institute of Banking and they taught me about this. It's called the pigeon drop. It's a scam. What they teach you is that the person who produces the false bank account information and is railing in the money to pay for this supposed lawyer, that's the person that's running the scam. And my wife got grifted, well, I could say my family got grifted of $2,000 from my very mother-in-law. It doesn't stop there, people. It doesn't. Besides the 15-year-old girl. Also, she took an undisclosed sum of money from a loan shark, my wife's mother, and she basically stuck my family and me with the bill, telling the loan shark that, well, my wife and her family over there, they're responsible to pay it back. And my wife, in an effort to obscure it from me, sold all her jewelry, stole off of me, stole off my daughter in order to pay that note, so their mother could live, you know, the good life that she didn't want to work for. So after my wife actually robbed me and I found out, because she needed some money, and I was going to say, here, take this watch, give it to her anyway, until I'll find money somehow, some way. I always do. And she actually had took it prior to me giving it to her, so she stole it. So I asked her, where's my watch? And she was actually honest with me and said, I had to take it to hock it. I said, you better go get it back. I don't care what you do. I told her, I don't want to be involved in your family scams. So she went and got the watch back. I asked her why she did it, and her response was, in a very masculine way, well, I did what I had to do. And I just turned around, okay, Buck Henry, have a nice day, because she was being masculine. And she actually got offended that I called her Buck Henry, rather than the fact that she stole my watch. She was offended over that. So that outweighed that she robbed me. Me calling her Buck Henry. And then, of course, there's, you know, when she knew a child got raped in her family and didn't do anything. Which totally leads to me to say that they obviously cannot connect to the children in their family. Anybody that sits there with their hands in the pocket while one of their children in the family gets raped and you don't do anything, there has to be something wrong with you. So they were quick to turn around and lie to get my daughter out of the house after my wife was neglecting her by not sending her to school. My wife was quick to get my daughter out of the house because now at the beginning of the second year, the first 2 weeks of school, she didn't take my daughter to school for a week. So of course, I'm going to have to say something or CPS is going to come over the house. My wife got insulted by that and moved out of the house, snuck out of the house with my daughter in order to cover her trail. And I think the reason why she did that, she said if he's complaining about me not sending our daughter to school, what is he going to do when he finds out that we trafficked a child? And the very people who are advising me how to treat my husband were involved in it. And instead of listening to me and solving our internal family problems, she was too worried about their family problems and covering them up. So to tell you the truth, I went to jail because I had knowledge of child trafficking. They had to punish me. They had to shut me up. And to this day, they're still harming my daughter by keeping her away from me and teaching her things that are abominations. And that's how you get to the child neglect and abuse. And on that, I'm out of here.